Harmonicats and so on. Borrah writes a lot of things there. Did you get? Are you on the mailing list, by the way? You're not, eh?
Never get on the mailing list.
I'll be darned.
I'm just not a joiner.
Well, we'll have to make you one of those honorary type guys.
Ed Mosner is a member or something. I read his papers from time to time.
Oh, John Berwan was here just a few months ago.
Just met Vic Beltoya 2 weeks ago.
Yeah,
Crazy Vic?
oh yeah, he was.
Plays his ass off, boy. Good. In his bag, he's fantastic.
The no spring name.
Yeah, that astonishes me.
Oh yeah. Well, that's right. Yeah, you're talking about. I missed that.
Well, he's got facility that's as fast as anyone you've ever heard, and yet he moves the slide halfway with the right hand and the harmonica halfway with the other.
Yeah.
So it's a combination of the two.
Yeah.
It's good if you're nervous, but it would seem to me that
It would make you nervous.
well, maybe that's
Yeah.
okay. So he's I just worked a joint called The Place in Kenosha, and one of his friends was on the band, and he called Vic up and had him come over.
Did
So
you
I
bring
wrote.
a chord player?
No, I went to their house after
Johnson?
Ben Williams,
Ben Williams, yeah.
and they played for about 4 or 5 hours for me. And I didn't get home until like 7 in the morning. Missed bed check and everything.
I don't think we're quite that bad. We're thinking like 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, but that's.
Well, Kenosha's like 2 hours away, you see,
Yeah.
so it was a very enjoyable evening. And then I sent him a tape of some stuff. A fellow from Canada named Bernie Bray. Have you heard
Oh
of him?
yeah, I've got some tapes there.
Recent stuff?
I don't know how recent they are, but
Well,
I got a friend of mine in Windsor. And then there's another one
Popular
too.
music.
Big orchestra background?
I think so. Yeah. Then there's another guy over there. What's his name? Bernie Bray. And what's his name?
Frenchman?
Well, no, there's that guy too. Claude Garden. He's a classical. Yeah, nobody knows him. Nobody knows him. And yet I taped 2 programs off of CVE television. And he plays concert music one time.
There was a guy, Walter something, up there, played harmonica and other stuff. I can't think.
I think it's Bernie Bray and.
But this, I got a tape of Bernie where it's in the Adler mold, but boy, it's a little more modern than Adler, and he plays clean and just like he's insane. You know, practice that much.
Well, we're not that insane around here, as you will know.
Well, Vic doesn't want to play and sound like anybody but himself, which is a very admirable trait. And they played, I imagine, between 15 and 20 original compositions in different styles and so on. It's in a continental bag and smacks a little of Bernie Bray's tonal.
What's their musical background?
Who's Vic and they've been playing together since they were 10 years old, and they're 51 now.
They read?
Yeah, they read.
Ben Williams is in the barbershop quartet up in Kenosha.
He is?
Yeah.
I didn't
He's a barbershopper.
They had a trio for a while. They had a little guy, like a tall dwarf, a gnome. And he apparently didn't work out after 3 or 4 years of being with them, so he went back to wherever he was from. They rehearse like 3 or 4 hours a night, 2 nights a week. They've been doing this for years and years and years. And
How many nights a week?
2 nights a week they rehearse.
See that, Bill? Did you hear that?
Well, that's all right with me. This is the other
But they really
Get that on tape there?
they really apply themselves, you know, and it shows in their playing. When they play with authority, you know, and that's the difference, you know. If you put the extra 2,000 hours in that this guy didn't put in, why you play with a little more assurance than he did.
absolutely true.
No doubt about it.
And there's no shortcut, or at least I've never met anyone that can pick up his harmonica every now and again, just occasionally, and still be right up where at his top form. There's no way to do it. You got to play a lot.
Is this Herbie from Flint area?
Herbie Jerry Forcier. Ever heard of him?
No?
He reminds me of Toots with his style, right? Would that be correct?
Yeah,
Closest
yeah,
to
it's real close.
And,
Jazz-minded.
well, I guess he said it was, Jerry got in an accident. And they had a gig in Flint one time, and they got Herbie to fill in for him. He busted his lip so he couldn't play. So Herbie did the shows.
The harmonica things.
Yeah, well, I think I called Jerry a week after I saw him. I said, hey, I ran to so-and-so. He said, oh yeah, then he told me the thing. I said, how did he ever learn all that stuff? He said, well, he didn't. He says, he played what he played, and they followed him.
They went in his direction.
Yeah.
That's a good way to do it.
Oh, goody! Just put them right here in front. Yeah, homemade right out of the oven.
Fat food, Gordon.
We had that.
Right,
We
out
had
of the
that
Thank
last
you.
night.
Yeah.
We had fat food.
Incidentally, speaking of them following, how good would Al or Don be in just backing up somebody who plays just
Tremendous.
any old thing?
Tremendous.
Al,
I would
not
say.
as good as Herndon would be.
Mm-hmm.
And,
They're good.
the Herndon and Johnny Thompson as a jazz rhythm section are without peer. They just know all the changes to every song.
Yeah,
Do you have any tapes of that harmonica jazz quartet from the late 50s or 60s, early 60s? Do you have any of those?
Who's that?
Al Fontana.
No, never heard of him.
Walter Gomez probably has some.
Yeah. Hey, that's right. Here we get a letter all rolled up on a little thin sheet of
Ever heard
paper
of this guy?
from Argentina, and he's got stuff in there, among other things, with the big harp. You know, how did he get this stuff? I can't even get it from Bill Fox, you know.
I've got their stuff.
And
In fact, I
he's
have
got
their
a
whole book of arrangements.
No kidding.
I must have 30 Harmonicat recorded charts with the trio, and then all that they did with LaFell with the poly. And I have, there's got to be 50 arrangements for the big band. They Xerox them, you know, and everybody in the band gets a copy. So Fendel sent me a copy. And as they add new things, why they send those.
Well, this guy, Chuck Fendel, is he other musician besides harmonica?
Oh yeah,
Is he,
Chuck is one of the best musicians you're ever going to want to hear. He's
Is he the one that did for Butterfly?
no Ray Tankersley.
Tankerson.
Did you hear that? Where'd you hear that?
On your tape.
Oh,
You gave
I thought
me
maybe.
enough to fill up the tape.
Oh. They did.
With him playing all 5 parts.
Yeah, I heard
Or
that.
6 parts, or 7 parts.
Whatever it is, it's clever.
The
But
Fendel
nobody
plays.
likes a smart ass.
Fendel plays piano very, very well. Has a harpsichord in his living room. He spent like $5,000 for or something.
A harpsichord.
And he and his wife do harpsichord and flute duets or something for kicks, you know. They buy lots of Bach and that stuff. And
Yeah, well,
It's helpful.
These,
And they read those off. Well, Chuck can listen to a song and copy the arrangement, you know, note for note, all the parts, proper voicings and everything.
He hears it all.
He hears it all and he writes it down while you're having a conversation as we are. He would have half an arrangement copied. It's just, the man's miraculous. Why he likes harmonica, I can't understand, because he's such a fine musician in other areas, you know. The
Were you talking
harmonica,
about,
Fendel.
It may be it's related to flute.
I don't know.
He's a flute nut.
how about Dick Hyman? You
Piano player?
know him?
Hyman or Heyman?
Or Hyman?
Dick Heyman, sure. I know.
Yeah, Dick hosts him occasionally when he's in town directing the symphony orchestra. That's kind of hard to believe. A guy that works in the realm of symphony orchestra is a harmonica enthusiast.
That's how he started out.
Yeah, I realize that.
He was weaned on harmonica.
He got me my job. That what?
Where do you want it to go?
That's far enough, right there. Just hang on to it.
What is it?
I'm gonna plug that in now. I thought I'd do it, just run this into the other machine again, which will.
What's it doing?
Oh,
Out, biggie.
If we're gonna get an interview, we're gonna do it right. Can't use the cheap machine. Use a 4-channel.
I don't have anything prepared.
No, if you'd like to, I mean, I'm not gonna force it. If you'd like to talk about your, you know, and your all your
sordid
experiences,
past life.
yeah, and well, we can put that in there.
Well, and Dagmar.
If you would like to,
Huh?
That's the last
by
time I
putting that
saw
on
him.
tape,
He was
I
on
don't
the show with Dagmar.
With Dagmar?
I
Did you?
I get it exactly.
Huh?
He was talking about you were on the show with Dagmar last he saw you.
Yeah.
Yeah, he says.
This is when he was telling stories about
Still doing it.
some island and blankets and something like that.
I don't use that very much.
Do you recall it?
That was the divorce in Okinawa.
Yes.
Yeah, it was.
Tell Billy is. Never heard it.
Oh, that was a joke I used to use in the act. Over in Okinawa, when a couple's not getting along, they ship the couple off the main island to a little rocky atoll, miles out into the ocean, and they give them one blanket, and they make them stay there until things get better. And since they started this, there has not been one case of a divorce. 43 murders. So that was
Kind of subtle, isn't it?
Sounds like you tried, huh?
You still married to the same wife?
No,
Well, you were. That was the second one.
that was the second one now. Now single man.
Single now. You had a boy with the first one.
He's married. Dale.
He's got to be 20.
Is that
Well,
right?
you'll
I
be
was never aware of that.
He'll be 22 this
That's nice.
March.
My Pat is going to be 28 this October. I have a Kathy who's going to be 17 next month.
Musically inclined, either one of them?
Pat was, but stopped. He did the guitar playing, folk singing bit. Earned quite a bit of money while he was in school, you know, because I wasn't able to support him, because this is all I do. So he was doing it professionally while he was in school, but when he became a banker, he kind of cut it out. I guess bankers don't like their staff to be folk singers or guitar players or whatever.
They could be.
In the railroad,
You mean if the-
when we first
doesn't
started
mix and
out,
match?
when we first started out, just to show you how weird and how the
You sure sound
establishment
funny.
thing
Would you
is.
say 1 and make those meters read about 0? So when I go in there, I'll make those be the big 0. Just give me a steady tone. Not too much. Get them up there to about 0.
Sing along.
Sing along with my
Okay.
That's it.
And 0.
Yeah, it gets varying all over the place. I got a
Steady tone. Got a
More steady. 0.
The crash you hear will be Mitchell hitting the floor.
All right, one more time. Okay, good. I'll put the limiter on.
The second wife dumped you too, huh?
Yeah,
Too bad.
she went to greener pastures.
Oh,
Still with the bank.
she used to work just off Grand Circus at that bank. Right?
Yes, right. Yeah, no, since
Stayed
that
at the
time.
Royal Palm or
She
something.
went with
Give your horn out
National
now.
Bank out in the suburbs and became manager.
Oh,
And,
help yourself, my boy.
now she's with the First Citizens Bank.
There's Bill Wesley doing himself
As
another
cashier.
cup of coffee and a
Officer.
little bit of sugar in there and some plastic cream, right? And some dessert. Let's see here, we got the air.
Are you on there?
We got a business card?
No.
Oh.
Looking for one from one of my kids' business cards, but I don't seem to have it here.
Is that the one that was in the bank business?
Yeah. I had a card of his, and I guess I gave it to Vic.
You must have met a heck of a lot of harmonica players across the country throughout the years, huh?
Oh, yeah. Not too many lately, but there have been a lot.
I was looking for a car with Illinois plates on it, and I drove
The rusty Volkswagen across the street.
Is this running, Gordon? Oh, we got this running, eh? Okay.
Gonna go.
Yeah, I'm running 3 3/4 over there.
Yeah, me
That's
too.
kind of high powered.
Right. That's a lot for speech, right?
Yeah.
You want to start from the beginning here, or we'll
Once upon a
open?
harmonica.
Once upon a time, we had. Well, okay.
We go back
Here we are,
to Stagg McMann.
February 11th, 1973, and we have sitting around here Stagg McMann, Gordon Mitchell, Bill Wesley, Dick Harris, Dennis, and Poochie. And
See how you recognize the
Poochie?
we're going to talk
mention his name?
I'm going to talk to Stagg a little bit about his experiences. Now, that's not your real name, right? That's your stage name.
That's right. The real name is Hugh McCaskey.
Hugh McCaskey.
McCaskey.
Okay, and why don't you just sort of
Otherwise
talk
known
to
as
us?
Pud.
Bud? That's I've heard that.
Pud, P-U-D,
That's
fat.
his nickname, huh? Pat McCaskey. And the other, in your Stagg McMann Trio years ago, who was the other?
Well, the bass player was Paul Staggerwald. That was the Stagg. I was the Mac, and Manny Smith, the chord player, was the Man.
Oh.
So when they dropped out, why I figured it was a good idea to keep using the name, because people who bought the act prior to that knew that name, and they didn't know my own name.
Mm-hmm.
But now it's just a pain in the neck, because income tax time I have to file under both names and so on.
Oh, I see. Well, maybe if I can just give you the microphone, and you can
That's known
tell
as
us everything you can remember
doing
from
business under an assumed name.
from day one.
AKA, also known as, or DBA, doing business as.
DBA, right? Why don't you just start back years ago and tell us how you got playing the harmonica and how it happened to turn out to be your livelihood, although we understand now you primarily work as a comedian, but use the harmonica. Tell us about the harmonica players you met along the way and the groups you may have been in, and anything you can think of. Give you the microphone.
Oh boy.
We'll just sit back and listen. And,
All the way back, huh?
high school.
Well, before high school.
Before high school.
Yeah, got my first harmonica when an uncle died. That was Depression days. And an uncle died, and among his effects was a 64. They were brand new and so on at that time. So I got it, and it was the days of the WPA. So there was each playground in Lancaster, Pennsylvania had a harmonica band and club. So at the end of that summer, I guess about 35 or 36, why all the harmonica clubs from the various playgrounds were consolidated into the St. Mary's Hall Catholic thing. Father Brown said that they could all meet there. So we had about 700 people in that first band.
When you say playground, this was a city recreation type
well,
thing? Okay.
Government, federal,
Oh.
paid the harmonica teacher. His name was Morris H. McBride. And we had this great big band, mostly Marine band. It sounded horrible. Because nobody played together, you know. We played things like Stephen Foster hits and all those good things, you know. Then out of that group, from the Rockland Street Playground, Manny Smith was a member, and I've forgotten which playground Stagg came from, but each of those guys was a bit older than I was, a year or two older, and so we formed a trio. And Stagg gravitated to the bass, and Manny was the wealthiest of the three, and he could go the $22 for the chord at that time. You know?
What year
Bass,
was that?
36, I guess.
36?
Yeah, the chord was, I think it retailed for $48, but we got it at a rake off. And the bass harmonica retailed for $17 or $18, and we got that for 40% off. And we played with, the big harmonica thing lasted about 2 years and then folded up. And we started jobbing around with the trio. Went to New York and did the Major Bows thing, and that jazz. Then we got hired. Oh, well, we went and worked the professional, semi-professional amateur nights in New York. In the last days of vaudeville, Lowe's had a chain of theaters that ran amateur nights once a week. And the fellow who later became president of AGVA, Joey Adams, was the house MC, and he asked, we were kids, see, and we'd go out and we could win with pretty handily, because you can't follow a kid act no matter what you do, see. So we didn't play very well, but they asked us, if you won first prize, it seems to me it was about $15, and the second prize was $10, and third prize was like $7.50 or something like that. This was in the Depression, and that was a lot of money. So they asked us if we would settle for $10 a night, win, lose, or draw. And we figured, well, we've been winning first prize, you know, we'll just stick with that. And they said, oh, okay. So each night we'd find out where the amateur show was, and we'd go there around New York. This is in summer vacation. We were still in school. And from there on, we didn't win anymore.
Oh.
So
They fixed you, huh?
they fixed it somehow, and we decided, well, we'll take the set
$10.
rate, yeah, so that we can stay in New York. So we did that, and then the fellow who was in charge, the fellow came around, and he had a couple of acts that were on it. Ringers, a singer, and a guy who did impressions, and they were with an agent called Howard Bruce, and he had thing called Hollywood Doubles, package show that worked vaudeville things. So we got with that, and
What year was this now, roughly?
now we're up to about 1940, I guess, when I got out of high school. And we couldn't go right away because I was still finishing school or something. But as soon as I got out of high school, we went there, and we got $50 a week for the trio. And he already had Alex Novell on his show, so they put us with Alex Novell. We became
Alex Novell was who now?
Alex had just come out of the Minevitch Rascals.
Oh.
He had been a bass player for a while with Minevitch, and then graduated up into one of the harmony parts with Leo Diamond. And he had gotten fired because the act went to Europe, the Rascals, and he was getting $12 a week. And when they got to Europe and they were playing for like crowned heads and so on, and the act was getting about 4,000, and he figured he's got Minevitch, so he asked him for $16, and Minevitch sent him home steerage. So when they came back, he wanted his job back, and he was back in another 2 years or so after that. Minevitch was heartless in that.
Minevitch made all the money.
Oh yeah, he was a monster when it came to money. So anyhow, we worked what was called the Kemp time with Alex, and then I became a harmony player rather than the lead player with the group, because
Had a quartet?
that was a quartet. Alex played the A solo tuning harmonica, and he sold me a Poly, which I still use today, $2, the octave Poly. It was one that I guess they had stolen from Minevitch. They did that a lot. You know, Minevitch treated his boys quite badly. Abe and Leo Diamond were with the group, for example, and they were orphans. So Leo was the lead player with Minevitch, and Leo wanted Minevitch to take his brother Abe out of the orphanage, you know. So Minevitch signed as his guardian, and therefore he didn't pay him any money. He just paid his room and board, and he gave him like 50 cents a week or something. and he's working in the act, see? All heart.
Yeah.
So, I lost the train of thought there.
Well, then this quartet was named, what was the name of that group now?
That I was with?
Yeah.
Alex Novell and his trio, they called us.
Alex Novell and his trio.
Yeah. Oh, what I wanted to tell you was the guys used to, they had, harmonicas were plentiful, and Minevitch furnished the harmonicas. So they had special suitcases made up and full of harmonicas, and then they traveled by train in those days. And they came, and I understand, mailed the suitcase home 3 or 4 times, you know. It'd be full of the new harmonicas, and then they'd arrive at a job, and there'd be no harmonicas, so Minevitch would get another suitcase full. And Heyman just mailed them home, you know. And the guys used to steal them from Minevitch, and then that's how I happened to buy this $2 Poly. It was hot. So Alex left after a little while. We were back to being a trio, and then we came here to Detroit in 1940. Howard Bruce, who was the producer of this show, came here, and we started to work for the Pete Iodice office. And we worked, I guess, every theater and club that was going in those days. We were here for a couple of years. We did the Harper Theater, Vogue Theater, Ramona Theater, Colonial Theater, Downtown Theater, Bowery Nightclub, Mickey Show Bar, Sid's. Every club that was going then would use a harmonica trio. We worked.
You realize all those places are out of business today?
They must be.
Most of them, yeah, right. Yeah.
And, well, I worked a club date a couple of months ago out on Harper Avenue, and I went right past the Harper Theater, and gee, it brought back the memories, because I worked there, I guess we did it 3 or 4 times. You know? So, next thing that happened was we started getting drafted. They were going to draft you for a year before World War II, so you remember the tune, Goodbye Dear, I'll Be Back in a Year?
I don't remember that, no.
No?
Oh, yeah.
I don't remember.
See?
You remember that.
So, how old are you, Bill?
47.
Oh, 50.
Well, I gathered by your
So-
saying you graduated 40.
Yeah. So, Manny and Stagg were going to get drafted. So, at the very last instant, they both volunteered, and I was without a job. So then Johnny Paleo was on strike against Minevitch. Whenever he didn't want to work or it came contract time, Johnny'd go on strike and get a $5 raise from Minevitch. So Johnny was starting his own band in Washington, and Dick Heyman recommended me to Johnny, so I got hired by Johnny and went to his house for a summer where we rehearsed every day. And that band was Don Henry, Don Quigenti, Ray Tankersley, Dave Doucette, a guy named Hugh Farr, I never heard of since, and Johnny and me. And then we went to open, and Minevitch got an injunction against Johnny and wouldn't let him work. So Johnny sent us home. And next thing you know, I got a wire from Minevitch, and he hired Doucette and me. Johnny still refused to go to work, and Johnny did say he thought Dave and I should work for Minevitch, so Leo Diamond and his trio were quitting, so he hired Carl Playford, and Dave Doucette and me to be his trio.
Well, that group you had with Johnny, what was that called? When you broke away from Minevitch, right?
Yeah. Well, I wasn't with Minevitch, it was just the Johnny Paleo harmonica band. We never got to work. We just rehearsed all summer. Lived at Johnny's house. Had a ball. Johnny was a big celebrity, you know. So from that, Minevitch, and then I was with, we had Sammy Ross in the band doing Johnny's part. And the band, I guess I joined them in Los Angeles in September of '42. Stayed with them until February of '43 when I got drafted. We did a short called the Harmonica School, and we worked theaters all around. And then about the time I got drafted, Johnny came back to work, and then Minevitch had 2 bands for a while. And the other band, the band with Sammy Ross was Carl Ford, played lead. I was one of the harmonies. Doucette was a harmony player. Ettore Maneri played Polly's and harmony parts. Ernie Morris, the black guy, played with us. Frank Marquis was the leader. His brother Pat was the bass player. Ben Burley was our chord player. Let's see, who else was in that band? Oh, Bill McBride sang. We used to call him Blobbo. He weighed about 385. And I've got a tape of the soundtrack of it.
Oh, yeah?
For short we did, if you want. Just got it from Ben Burley. Andy Pascas bought up prints of all the pictures that the harmonica groups have been in down through the years. And so Ben finagled this. I think he paid 20 times what it was worth for a print of that short or something. Andy's a tough guy to do business with.
It would be about the 40s. I remember Fox Theater had billed Borrah Minevitch, and Francis Leader was on stage 2 at that time. You weren't with that group in 40.
What time? What year?
But could have been in 40, but I'm a little hazy. I can't put the.
I worked
together.
at Fox Theater one time with him.
With Francis Leader, you know, the actor. Letterer.
Yeah.
So I remember my sister took me when I was somewhat younger. He had a gun and was shooting it on stage, and if you remember that particular.
I don't remember that.
You know, he had a little acting scene, is what the.
Did a dramatic thing.
Yeah, right.
Well, after the Minevitch thing, I got drafted as soon as I got to be 20, and then I worked in an Army show until I got out of the Army. Then we went back with the original trio, and I guess we went to Chicago first and starved a little bit, and then we came to Detroit and broke the act back in again properly. And we were with Delbridge and Gorell office then. I understand Ray Gorell died. Del Delbridge still has an office with O'Halloran or something. And that's the time I met Gordon Mitchell. We were here about 47 or 48.
What were you doing in 47, 48? Were you playing on the group?
Playing on
Playing on the group?
the world's worst trio.
What was that? What was that?
That was the Harmonica Dance.
Oh, yeah.
Joe Pertelli. So.
Were you playing chord?
Yeah, chord player.
I always thought of Cortelli as being a chord player.
Joe? Well, Jim was, his brother Jim, I knew from the Minevitch gang first. And then Joe I met as a chord player in 51 when I was back with the Rascals.
I understand Jim was a pretty fine lead player.
Jim is an excellent lead player. He's got along good with him. Joe, his brother, when he learned a part, was very sure in it, but he wasn't quick when it came to reading and stuff.
Your travels, you making acquaintance with Herb Schreiner?
Sure.
Was that in your service time?
No, afterwards. I met Herb a couple of times when we had the trio. And then after the trio broke up, he was going to cut a record. And Don Henry was the contractor for the recording sessions. And I only got in on the first one. There were a number of them.
Well, Schreiner's ability wasn't,
He was a comedian who played harmonica a little bit.
Yeah, he wasn't noted for being a...
He played Chardash and 12th Street Rag, and that's about it.
Yeah, about tape of that, yeah.
Well, he just played the straight Marine band. He would
No.
bend those. No, what I'm saying, when I've seen his act, he'd have the
he
Marine
played,
band and he would
chromatic.
get your sharps and flats.
Schreiner didn't. Johnny O'Brien did.
Well, I saw him.
And
at
Schreiner
camp.
also copied the old, what the heck, what's the guy's name? There was a Robinson who did pretty good Marine band work. But Britt Wood was the one who bent the notes and used to throw the Marine band out. He was the forerunner of Shriner, Johnny O'Brien. But anyhow,
I understand this McCoy is pretty good for him band.
oh, he's first caliber. He's great. He reads too. And Tommy Morgan, who's doing most of the work out on the coast, he's a good enough musician. They call him up and he goes in and cuts the sessions. You know, doesn't know what it's going to be. He's the one that does the bass part on Sanford and Son.
Oh, yeah.
Just he just gets a call and goes in and reads it.
What's his name again?
Tommy Morgan.
Morgan.
Excellent.
Well, these names I haven't heard of. Maybe you guys haven't either, but
I never met him.
there's so
He
many.
sure plays good. Ooh.
There's a lot more harmonica players than we realize around this country. Good ones.
Well,
But they hide.
Yeah, yeah.
See,
What
never,
would you-
never find out they're in town or coming to town unless there's a panic telephone call.
see how he's acting snotty again.
This is true, though. It happens all the
Well,
time.
I worked last night in Flint.
Right, at the
Call
IMA hall,
Yeah. Who told you that?
the panic telephone call.
How come he could call you and he didn't give me your number?
He didn't have it.
Oh, how did he call you collect that?
Then he called here. Lee told me he called here and you weren't home.
No answer?
And he called Al Fogel.
That's funny. Maybe.
And Al Fogel gave him my number. Then he called me.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, Stagg McMann's in town. He's passing through Pontiac now on his way to the Elmwood for 2 weeks. This correct. Okay. And then all of us, the rest of it. I said, well, he said, I didn't have your number, so I couldn't give it to him. I said, well, how'd you call me?
You had him there.
then he backtracked all this,
Yeah.
what had happened. So, did you see him at all?
No.
Just on the telephone. Okay.
Less time than it took you to tell that.
Right.
Actually.
Huh. You didn't see Leroy at all?
Mm-mm.
Oh, he's
Never met him.
And he wants to meet you. Where's
Okay.
When you
That'll be
started-
how he does it.
When you started out in this business, how did your parents view your
Going away from home when I
Yeah.
was 15, they didn't like it too much, I guess, but I wanted to be in show business, you see. So it was Depression days, and there was one less mouth to feed, and they figured that the other guys were older, and they would kind of chaperone me.
Teach you the ropes.
Mm-hmm. So that was it. You know, on that $50 a week, we never got the 50 in one chunk. This guy, Bruce, would roll up a dollar bill into a thing about the size of a mothball and walk past you and slip it to you sometime during the day. And then you could live as hilariously as you wanted on that. And I don't think they ever checked me into in that first 6 months I was in the business, they never checked me into a hotel. We'd go into the Milners and the Earl hotels and stuff, and push twin beds together, and then 4 or 5 of us would sleep sideways on the beds, you know, to save money. But we thought we were really in there, you know, showbiz.
Yeah.
Cha-cha-cha.
Well, about the same time that Sammy Ross had and Carl Ford,
Yeah,
Dennis. Upstairs.
Joe DeFolio,
yeah.
You must have been.
and Pete Peterson had the other group on the other side with Murad, Bill Walden on bass,
Al Parkson.
Vito Paterno,
I see him every now and then. He lives in,
Indiana,
no, Ohio,
Ohio.
right, just near the Pennsylvania border.
This was before the Harmonicats now?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Jerry?
This
Well,
is
Jerry started out playing bass with Johnny. And then when they got Bill Walden, let's see, somebody got drafted. Forgotten who got drafted out of the group, but Jerry got up playing the harmony part. And then for a while George Fields was playing. Kid from middle of or Central America, Tony Reyes was the lead player.
with the white hat.
Yeah. He played nice.
Oh, yeah.
And then he left, and George Fishman came in out of the Captain Borrah band. And he was sick for a while, and I got to play lead a couple of days with him while I was in the Army. That's when I met Jerry.
Were you reading then?
Sure. Not
Well, when you
very
first started on the
right.
road with Minevitch, didn't you have to read?
Sure, all those parts were written out. We read them.
Because you'd have to. That Dick and I have been kicking this thing around. The harmonies are so close there. What is it that does that? It's such a smooth. I just regard it. I categorize it as a Minevitch sound. And I don't know whether he
You got a
copied it
tape you
from
brought
someone.
over. He's got 5 chromatics on there.
The blend of instruments.
Yeah, it's just so beautiful. I was always fascinated by that Minevitch sound. And is that where they originally started out? Where that was the precision in harmonica?
What I understand was the story on vibratos, that Minevitch vibrato was Ernie Morris was the first one to do it. And they were working on stage, and Ernie comes through with this big whoa, whoa, whoa sound. And Minevitch looked at him kind of funny and reached over and took the harmonica away from him and put it in his pocket. And he gave him another one. And then they walked past Minevitch's dressing room between shows, and he's got it apart, and he's looking up at the light through it. Find out, what is he doing? What's wrong? He thought it was the harmonica, not that it was Ernie. And then from there on, they all tried to emulate that. And one of the better music, that's the story.
That's the start of that?
That was the start of that type of vibrato.
Yeah, right.
And then Leo Diamond got it down so that he was he liked the Guy Lombardo syrupy stuff.
Right. Real drawn out.
Oh yeah, and he really choked him up good, Leo. And Abe played so much like Leo, on an A-B comparison, you could hardly tell them apart. And then Dick Heyman, Alex Novell was the third player in the trio at first, and then Heyman replaced him. And Heyman has that same general sound too. It's not quite as syrupy, but if he wants to schmaltz it up and clown around, he can sound more like Leo than Leo.
That's the throat vibrato.
Yeah.
Well, Heyman, I noticed, listening to the recordings, he seems to be able to get that way up in the high register.
Oh yeah. Well, Leo could do it on every note in the harmonica.
Oh boy.
It's tough.
It's
I
very
can't.
difficult for me.
When I get up
Halfway, you lose
above an A flat on the blow tones, forget it.
Right.
The C sharp is just ridiculous. It just falls apart.
They don't pad those, put the savers on beyond
No.
nothing?
And
Was it just a pressure then?
it's a pressure
Pretty
thing, sure.
Terrifically.
And then a different sound, the one that I liked better than that was the Charlie Layton sound. Charlie started out with the Philharmonica sextet, or septet first, and then later on, down as years went along, he went with the Captain Borrah group. And he got the biggest, fattest sound of anybody I ever heard. He'd play real softly in a room, and it would just fill that room. It'd be smashing against the walls. He played such a big sound.
How did he produce this sound? This is throat vibrato or different?
Throat vibrato, but he lifted his reeds up from the plates quite a bit, so he had to put a lot more air through them. Leo's were choked up pretty good, and Charlie's was more of an open sound. You can hear Charlie's sound. Do you have that Heyman Spectacular, the Mercury?
Yeah.
On String of Pearls, Eddie Manson does a couple of jazz choruses that don't make it. And then Charlie Layton comes in for a half a chorus, and that's the only thing that happens on that whole record, the whole LP, is that one little chorus that Charlie Layton plays. And if you break it out, I'll point out what I'm talking about.
I don't know if I've got that one. The String of Pearls on it. You mentioned.
They did 3 of the Spectaculars. First of all, came out as a Blackie Schackner, Alan Black Spectacular. That one was on Grand Award and Peerless.
Cartoon faces on the cover.
No, the one I'm talking about has, yeah, that's the one. The one, and then there was one on MGM where they went to 6 guys, and that was Heyman, Manson, so on. And then the one on Mercury, Perfect Presence series, where the Chamber Wang was on it.
He's got about the biggest record collection. I don't collect many
But the
harmonica records, actually, by comparison.
Charlie Layton sound comes out on that one thing. That's really the most musical of the harmonica sound was Charlie Layton. He was a jazz player just prior to Toots. He was the one that had it all locked up.
Mm-hmm.
And then Toots came along, and you haven't heard much of Charlie since.
Well, let's get back to your, what did we leave off, 1956 or someplace, or 1940, I forgot now, but
in the 40s.
finish that up and then we'll get talking about the techniques if you want to.
Oh, okay.
You can show us your technique and
I don't have much. I'm not an innovator, you know. I just do what other people I hear somebody else do.
Well, I know those tapes that Leroy had of your trio there. I thought that was fantastic.
Oh, those were
What?
cut in 1950.
Mm-hmm.
At that point, we rehearsed a lot with that group. We rehearsed like all day, every day, you know.
Oh,
And that's why, and here again, goes back to the point, if you practice a lot, it shows.
well, you were doing a lot of progressive jazz and things way back then, but nobody, the cats
Well,
did that. Or?
no, well, we couldn't sell that. We never earned a nickel doing that. Well, we did a couple of tunes on, we did one jazz thing on the Sullivan Show back then. And we rehearsed for a couple of days on the Gleason Show in a production number where we played Tiny's Blues, which was one of those Bob things. And then came time for dress rehearsal, and they said, what is that song you're playing? You know? And somebody says, it's Tiny's Blues. And someone says, it's a bop thing. And I said, we don't want any bop. So then after all this rehearsing with the girls, being on the chalk marks at a certain point, you know, then we had to take it out and play a boogie instead on the Gleason Show because they didn't want any bop.
This is on the TV show, huh?
Yeah,
Back in
but
what?
those 49, I guess. Those things, the progressive jazz things, were written by a fellow named Tony Luisi. He was a child prodigy. At that time, he was about 15. He had polio when he was 12, and he had a crippled right arm. And he wrote these things very, very quickly, and his parents said that the most money he would be allowed to charge for them would be $5 an arrangement. So he would send 2 or 3 arrangements a week, and we'd learn them. It was an oops.
Oops,
I
there.
didn't have a hunk of cake.
Have a piece of cake.
Fat food time. Did you hear the record that he did with his on
right.
Columbia or something?
Yeah, right. I finally did hear about it, but I never did. I didn't hear the
Tumbleweeds,
record, but I heard about
wasn't
it.
Oh.
I didn't hear the record. Is that the one that? I remember that.
Tumbleweeds. I guess I covered the waterfront. No.
I forgot. He did the charts on somebody else. Was that tape during a show or what?
Yeah. And what part of Indiana do you come from?
Back home again in Indiana.
That was his theme.
That's on the record too.
With the band?
Yeah.
Well, let's do that.
Backtrack a bit. We go back to where we were in 1940 or someplace in there and bring us up to date on what you were doing in then and now, and mentioned about some of the people you were talking about. I think we lost about maybe 5 or 10 minutes.
Oh.
Fuzzy Feldman.
Fuzzy? He was the chord player with Minevitch for a long, long time, and then later on with the Don Henry Trio. Don Henry had 3 or 4 versions of his act. Now, the first Don Henry Trio was Don playing bass and or harmony, and Lenny Schwartz playing lead, and Alan Pogson on chords. And the second version of the group was with Pete and Fuzzy, Peterson and Feldman. And that's the one that cut the records. And then when they left, they went on to do an act called the Harmonicats. That went another 5 years after Don Henry, I guess.
The Don Henry Trio, see, who was in that group now? The one that cut the record? Pete Peterson?
Pete Peterson on lead, and Don Henry on bass or harmony part, and Fuzzy Feldman. And they always used drums and bass.
Well, I don't think I've heard any of those recordings.
Haven't you?
No.
They stand up better for the time than any other harmonica trios. I've got them if you want them.
The Turnpike Polka?
Oh, yeah.
I was on the other side of Saber Dance.
Yes.
wasn't it?
He's got all that stuff. I could spend a couple of weeks at his place, day and night.
Well, they put out a, there's an LP put out where they reissued that stuff, and the quality's pretty good on the LPs.
Well, see, then, following your group now, you had the Stagg McMann Trio, which started, when, in the 40s? Or 30s?
30s.
30s.
Ended up in 50. End of 50.
And you mentioned you guys got drafted or something between that time?
Oh yeah, we were in the Army. Stagg was in the Navy, Manny was...
So I grouped up the group for a couple of years? Or did you pick
3
up
years.
people to fill in? When you were,
No, never worked with any other groups in that.
3 years. What 3 years was that now? What time ago?
43, 44, and 45.
Okay, so you were out
And
there
46 to 50 we were back together.
back together. Anything unusual or exciting happened in those years? From,
46.
Yeah, 46 to 50, because you broke up in 50, right?
Yeah, well, we worked very successfully with a trio for that time.
Toured the United States.
Palace Theater in New York.
Yeah, we worked at Palace, we worked the Chicago Theater in Chicago, and the Oriental, Earl Theater and Capitol Theater in Washington. Olympia, that was vaudeville days, you know, the end of it. And we worked pretty good nightclubs.
Well, during that period of time then, what other harmonica groups were your competition?
Harmonicats. We used to get a lot more money than they did, because they were playing like the bottom of the barrel. They were, at the time they hit with Peg, they were getting $300 a week in St. Louis, but they were playing 2 places, the Chase Hotel and the Park Plaza next door. They'd do a couple of shows in the one, and then run next door, and they, you know, at that time we were getting about $450 a week, and the Philharmonica Trio, which was staying in the same hotel area with us, were asking $750 because they were on Capitol Records. So they were getting $750, and that was Joe and Charlie Patello and Harry Helicke.
I've only heard one recording Dave Martin had about the Philharmonic Trio.
They've got, I would say, a dozen sides on Capitol.
They were most successful in those years, would you say?
They got the most money.
If success is money.
Yeah, right.
If success is money, and
The best,
So-
the best sounding trio at that time was the Stagg McMann Trio.
we used to think so because we practiced more than anybody else. Harmonicats were kind of ragged. They didn't know how to take a proper bow and so on. So when they did hit with Peg, which was an accident, why, they had no stage act. They had been working clubs mostly. And
This also
Jimmy
was-
Mulcahy had to teach them how to make a stage entrance and how to bow together and so on. And they were so nervous their first theater job at the Oriental, when the record was big, that they put a scrim down in front of them, a fishnet thing, because they were afraid to be out in front of it.
Now this is in the days before amplifiers.
Oh yeah, they didn't go amplified for another 10 years after that.
Well, speaking of amplifiers,
Al was very heavy in those days, you know, and he did whatever comedy relief they had, Al did.
Oh, yeah.
Because he was so big and fat.
which was what? Lines?
A few lines, references to the weight, and he did things talking about false teeth and back of Jerry, and hairs, a toupee, and all that. Those kind of things.
I remember that.
You know, where he,
False. That's pretty good. They used to do that nicely, you know, and then Al got to be pretty vain after that. And he became a clothes horse when he had the heart attack, you know, he took off 100 pounds and stuff. And he became very, very conscious of how he looks.
You must have been very heavy back then, huh?
Oh yeah, he went,
Almost 300?
oh, more than that.
Oh, boy.
now when the
Yeah.
Stop.
Stagg McMann Trio broke up, what year was that?
50.
50.
We did about 8 months for the team, just Manny.
Would you say through 46 to 50 was your most productive years, traveling and
Mhm.
flying? course, the groups you mentioned, of course, there were still the Paleo and the Minevitch too. The two groups working, or what?
No, Minevitch died after a while.
When was that?
About 56, I guess. And
Well, he was still working though.
Minevitch didn't work with the act from 42 on.
Oh, I see.
He always had somebody fronting the act. Pete Peterson fronted it very successfully for a while. Frank Marquis for the longest period of any of the guys.
Yeah, that's a guy I would.
Frank Marcovecchio,
Now the Buffalo.
Philadelphia.
Philadelphia.
South Philly.
South.
South Philly. And they had Vic Pace, a chord player, doing it for a while. And who else fronted the act? Al Furbish was the first one to front the act. He was from the original group that did 1 in a Million, Love Under Fire,
Boxcar Rhapsody.
Rascals, Always in My Heart. No, by Always in My Heart, Furbish was gone. The original guys that were gone by that time, Irwin Crane was the one who used to do the, quote, jazz solos. And Al Furbish played one of the harmony parts and did the comedy shtick with Johnny. And then Harold Layton took over when Furbish started fronting the band. When Harold Layton did the comedy with Johnny.
He's a brother of Charlie Layton?
No, no relation.
No relation, oh. Well then...
One is Leighton, the other is Lay. Charlie Layton's name is really Litchfield, I think. Capybara guys always change their names. Nat Burton was Nat Bergman, and Leon LaFell was Leon Lairfeld. And
You notice all these Irish guys playing the harmonica?
the Capybaras were always Jewish guys. The whole band was Jewish. I don't know whether it was a thing or what. Joe Sands was Joe Mullendor. Sam Schechter was about the only one that didn't change his name. We knew them quite well because they were our idols, more so than the Minevitch band, because they did a lot of radio work. You know, they used to have a 15-minute sustaining radio show.
Capybara boy?
Yeah, sponsored by Honer Company.
How many were in that group?
Anywhere from 6 to 8.
Well, a big band then.
And everything was written out. They just went in and read the parts. It was just astonishing. They used to embarrass you. You know, I'd go backstage to see them, and they went, "Come on, play this with us." You know, you know, oh, oops. I coughed. And then I don't know where we are now. It's all out of chronological order.
Okay, we're up about 1950. Well, after the 50s, when you guys split up.
Well, Stagg came in one day and says he thought he'd give us the usual 2 weeks' notice. And so that was that. And then we didn't know any bass player that was around that played that would fit with our style, and so the fellow that was managing us at that time said just do it with the team.
Stagg played the bass?
Yeah. So
his name again now was
Paul Staggerwald.
Paul Staggerwald. Okay, he was bass, and you were the lead player.
Yeah. And Manny Smith.
Manny Smith.
Well, we all played bass in a couple of tunes. We were in Russian Sailor, and and we all played 64s and 3 or 4 things that were written up. And I lost it again.
Well, anyway, what he gave you 2 weeks' notice?
Yeah.
What was the reason for that?
Well, he wanted to go to school.
Anymore?
He wanted to use up his GI Bill because it was going to run out, and he was married, and his wife had already registered him for an audio school. He wanted to be a TV repairman. And he's done that. He's
is that what he's doing today?
Yeah, he has Stagg's TV repair. He's got a couple of stores and sells appliances and stuff.
Is it true there's one in Florida?
He had one in Orlando and 3 or 4 in Pennsylvania.
They used to fly back and forth?
But he cracked up his airplane.
Does he ever monkey around with harmonica
No,
anymore?
he stopped. He never played harmonica from the time he quit in 51 or 50, the end of 50, He came back in. We had the Steve Allen TV show booked, and he came back in for that. Like 2 months after he'd left us, he came back in and did that one telecast. He never touched his harmonicas again. And then when I was playing bass with Murad, well, he mailed me his harmonicas.
How about your other partner then?
Manny.
Manny, yeah.
He hit it lucky, didn't
His father died, if you call that luck.
he? With the junkyard.
Left him a junkyard business, and then it's Lancaster Salvage Company. We still got that. He's quite prosperous. He's a very, very good chord player, good musician, and a nice man.
Did he ever play any other instruments or study music, just harmonica?
Just harmonica. He had a very good natural ear, and
How did he learn to chord, for example? By listening to other people, techniques, or did
no, at that time there weren't very many others around. He never went for the things that Fuzzy did, because Fuzzy cheated too much. He would deaden a chord and change it only under extreme emergencies. It had to be a panic thing before Fuzzy would change chords. He would get playing rhythms on a thing and deaden the tone for the most part, and instead of making a lot of harmonic changes, Fuzzy was a rhythmic player. And the guy with the Capybara band, Phil Solomon, didn't play a whole lot of rhythms. He did pretty much just straight backbeats, like a guitar player would play. And Manny was halfway between the bunch, and then Manny's the one that found the split chords.
Oh, yeah.
And found that by accident, and then we sat down with a pencil and paper and figured out what could be done with it. And so by the time that those Tony Luisi things came out, those were all...
Oh, yeah, I noticed a lot of major sevens. And
major sevens,
six,
minor six, ninths, so on.
When you say
He could
discovered
grab them
it-
real good. He was astonishing in that.
When you say discovered it, you can write it out and you know where the notes are. You can see where you can get them from adjacent chords. But
Yeah.
nobody ever thought of that before, or
No.
knew what the notes were in the chords to.
Well, to this day, if Fiora doesn't know what the notes are in a chord, he doesn't know what goes to make up a chord. You know, he's chord players just don't seem to be curious enough, I guess. Whereas if the guy's a harmonica player, he sees what notes are in every chord, you know, and he gets to know inversions and so on. Harmonica is a much more musical instrument than the chord, but it isn't as showy.
Okay, then now we'll follow your path right down to the present. Then you didn't have a group then, right?
No,
So did you try to get another bass
back-
player?
No.
You just split
No, I
up,
didn't.
and what did you do then?
Well, Manny and I worked together until his father died, and then I had no act. So I went back with the Rascals again in '51. By that time, it was Doucette. I guess he's been in and out more than anybody. He's got at least 25 years with him. Dick Robinson was the chord player. Skippy Moore was one of the harmony players. He's a dealer in Vegas now. That was it. I guess we had 6 or 7, Johnny. And then I left that group in a fight with Minevitch. See, it got to a point where Dick Robinson got drafted and Joe Curtelli came in the act as the chord player. And when Dick left, he took all the chord parts with him. So I had done an arrangement of Paul and Pat for the act, and Minevitch never got around to paying me for it. So when we got to New York, Dave was trying to get fired, and because if he got fired, then Minevitch would have to pay his fare home. See, but if he quit, he had to pay his own fare. So Dave used to drink his half-gallon of wine and get bombed, you know, and come on stage and sing his parts and never play. Wouldn't shave. And figuring Johnny would fire him, but Johnny wouldn't fire him. And Skippy didn't play very much at all. He did the things with Johnny, but he wasn't a harmonica player, really. And Cortelli didn't know the chords to any of the tunes we were doing in the act, and I wasn't going to write any more chord parts until I got paid for poet and pedant. So by the time we got to New York, we had 6 guys on stage, and I was the only one playing. So Minevitch came in. Everybody's waiting to see him because they want to ask him for a raise. See? And then he comes in and fires everybody. And he caught a show from front. It was really a disaster. And he just fired everybody that day. He came in to rehearse the act because they were going to go into the Palace with Betty Hutton. And so then he decided he'd hire everybody back, but it was going to be a bunch of tight rehearsals and stuff. So I told him I didn't want to get hired back. I just wanted my money for the arrangements. And he said, well, he didn't order the arrangement. Johnny ordered it. So Johnny, he took $50 from Johnny's salary and paid legal. So Johnny got furious with me. So Johnny stopped talking to me. And we went to Pittsburgh to work a week at the Stanley Theater. And Johnny refused to work with me. And so I had to sit in the audience every show for a week and be there or I wouldn't get paid. And then they broke in the new guys to rehearse this other thing. So I left the act at 51 and then I didn't see Johnny for 10 or 12 years. And I guess by the time he got stuck and needed the lead player somewhere, like, he forgot that he was mad at me. And we've been real good friends ever since. Johnny's doing some pretty bizarre things these days.
Oh, yeah?
Oh. I won't tell you on the tape, but I'll tell you.
Okay.
Jody Fulvio was his personal manager.
Yes, JoJo. Well, he was, last I heard, like last week.
Yeah.
But when they finished at the Hyatt House in Chicago this last time, they had 11 days off before they opened in Tahoe. And the phone rang at 5 in the morning. Gets out of bed, you know, like it's a panic call at that hour. You figure something's wrong with the kid or something. So it's Johnny, and he's, hey, sweetheart, here's the deal. He says, I want you to be my road manager. And he says, I'm going to pay you $500 a week, and I want you to get me 4 guys, and we'll open tonight here in. I can't get 4 guys. And I can't be your road manager because I have things booked. Well, don't take any other jobs from here on out because you're going to be with me, baby. So, no! And he had forgotten to tell JoJo he fired him, see?
Oh!
And Rudy Valley had come in after Johnny and really bombed out. And he wanted to pay Rudy Valley off, and Johnny was staying around the hotel. So they said if he could get the band together, you know, they could finish out the week. So he figured we'd pick up local guys. You know, often when you go to work with Paleo, you meet the guys as you're going on stage, you know, and when you're out there, they say, what tune's next? What'll we play? You know, what key? Anything. And you don't panic.
That's the way it's working today.
That's right. Well, not for the last 6 months of the past year. They had the same band the whole time. Boy, they played good. They sounded really good the last couple of times I saw them. But the last I heard, New Year's Eve, Johnny got a date in Florida, and he got Carl Friedman, an old bass player from the coast, and he brought in Carl Ford from Spokane, and JoJo from Binghamton, and not JoJo's nephew. And they went down there, and he stranded him. He didn't pay him for the date, and he didn't pay he had borrowed Carl Fried's American Express card to pay for their plane tickets, and then he just disappeared again.
Is Hal Harmon still,
He's not in the picture.
like I got called a couple of years ago around Thanksgiving. He had a panic. They were booked at Vegas, and he said, hey, do you think that you get your guys down here? I said, I don't think so. No, we're working and so on and so forth. He said, can't you take a vacation time? Or you couldn't get anybody. Finally, I found out they had to cancel out. They just couldn't get anybody.
Well, they've had that quite a number of times lately. But last year, about this time, I got a call at 5:30 in the evening. JoJo from Minneapolis. He said they had hired Jerry Kellerman and Bob Sullivan to Dick Gardner's old partners.
Oh, yeah.
And they called him up on the phone, said they were opening at Diamond Jim's, they needed 2 guys, and they said, well, fine, you know, and what tunes? They said, told them what numbers they were doing on the act. And the guy said, oh yeah, that's good, they can play them. And they said, well then, they had gotten in a day early to have a walkthrough on the rehearsal. And they said, well, since they know all the tunes, why don't we meet for band rehearsal with the backup group tomorrow at the club? So 2 o'clock in the afternoon, they didn't show. And nobody could find them. And then Kellerman was told somebody else, he's not going to work with that lousy act, you know, let him hang by the thumbs. And he said yes, he would work, so here they are in town. The act gets $4,000 a week. You know, $3,000 Diamond Jim's, I guess. And they're supposed to have 6 bodies, and they only got 4. So they went to the union, and they found a guy that was a local harmonica player in the union, and they had nobody who had ever worked with the act before. And so he called me and says, can you get on a plane? But like at 6:10, there's a plane.
What a business.
That's why it's best to travel with your own group, and that's
right. You know,
don't worry about it.
So I said, well, I can't work the weekend with you. I'm already booked. I was working in Pittsburgh. And so he said, well, just come up now so we can open tonight, and that'll give us a couple of days to get somebody in. So I went over, and I arrived at the club at about 10 after 8, you know, took a cab from the airport. And by 8:15, we were on.
Oh, man. Sounds like fun.
Well, there's a little hysteria goes with it, you know. And they don't seem to mind.
That's part of the game.
And you would think with the kind of money that he's getting, he would. Well, Johnny. Here, the comedy is the important thing. As long as that's right, it doesn't matter what they have going. And they've proven that down through the years. As far as harmonica players go, it's kind of disastrous. But the act will get booked back again and again. So that weekend, I had to go to Pittsburgh for a couple of days, and Bob Allen, you know him? Bob's, I guess he was a harmonica player 25 years or something. Now he's got a day job. He and his wife played chord, Jean. So he lives in Minneapolis, and he worked for me for the weekend, and then I came back to the Pittsburgh job.
When was this now?
Last year. About this time.
Did you get a call recently from Florida, Dick?
No.
Must have been Al Fogel. I think it was Johnny.
Yeah, they're looking. Well, the other guy, Paul Barron's always looking for somebody, too. He didn't pay any money, and that's a bad act. I don't want to badmouth anybody, I'll tell you.
They were in Detroit here not too long ago.
How many players?
A place called the Royal Ascot.
Oh, yeah.
How many players are there?
I didn't see their...
Usually there's a trio that plays all through their shenanigans. And then he picks up harmonicas from time to time and plays a Furties or two. The little guy just isn't funny.
I don't think it's
He's changed several times.
Oh, he's had 3 or 4 little guys. Last guy I saw was Robbie.
Dave Zavell was...
Dave Zavell. Did you ever encounter Dave?
He got canned, I guess.
What'd he play?
That person who was lead man.
He was the lead player.
No, he had a tall, skinny lead player. Guy was about 6'6" or 6'7". Youngish guy. Played with the harmonica backwards and had it tilted to the side. Huh?
We know a guy who plays like this on a slant.
Real slanty.
Well,
I was going to say, Dick, that
you heard how Paul Barron got the name, didn't you?
But the Harmonica Rascals?
Yeah.
And he bought
10%?
No, when Minevitch died, he did a title search and found that nobody had ever copyrighted the name.
Oh.
So he did. He had never been with the act, so he came out with the original Harmonica Rascals with a flagrant copy of it, and then he got court order that Johnny couldn't use it, and Minevitch's daughter Lydia was putting out Harmonica Rascals for a while for a percentage of the action. And I think Alex Novell had that.
So Barron now's got the official rights.
Owns the name, but he had never worked with it under the Minevitch days. he was one of the very few harmonica players who never did work with BM.
Well,
But when I'll tell you from my angle, when they've worked a job, that club or that place of business will never hire another harmonica act after that, ever. That closes the door, and that's not doing the business any good.
Paul Bear's group.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you're a door closer, forget it.
I heard they were pretty bad down at the Royal Ascot. I didn't see their act, but I guess Fogel and a few guys went over. They said they were really bad.
He has a trio, and the trio, when I saw him, was fairly well rehearsed. The guy played awfully flat. The lead player, he choked it. And he had an older guy playing chords, but he had to quit because he had emphysema. He was in his 60s, an older guy. And the bass player was pretty good. I forgot his name. He was from Pennsylvania.
Well, Dave Savell, I met here one afternoon, like we're meeting now. Dave's out of New York. You gotta read the music, you know, you gotta read the music. Here's some music. Got a music stand, and they set up a stand of music. And Dick was playing bass, I was playing chord. And I thought I'd all of a sudden become very terrible and rotten as a player because I wasn't keeping up with what was happening. Dick and I talked about it afterwards, and he had the same idea that what he was doing, what I was doing, along with Dave, just wasn't gelling anywhere. You know, it's like
Was it his time problems?
Oh, yeah.
Terrible.
That was that.
Timing, yeah.
So then, after that afternoon, come on down to the club and see the act, just the act. Well, I drove on home, and I'm not going to any club to see that act. not the way it impressed me from there. Well, then the drummer, the house drummer down there, I know, and I spoke with him sometime later about the act, and he says, terrible.
Yeah.
Like this all the time.
Really bad.
All the time they were playing, it was like this.
Well, at least with Johnny, when Johnny is funny, he's funny.
Oh, yeah. He's good.
Now, the last time they were in Detroit, Johnny, they played the Elmwood. And that'll be, or it was a year ago, New Year's.
I had worked just ahead of that with them somewhere. I think Sutton was in Dayton a week ahead of that. Then they were coming here.
They came in with Hal Harmon and JoJo.
I didn't see that.
We were involved. Carl Ford,
No,
Alex Axiotis.
that's possible.
He was fronting the band and was dreadful at it.
And there was, I guess that's about the Johnny and
five.
and JoJo, and yeah, there were 5 altogether, but the one guy didn't play at all. I know that.
Oh, JoJo's nephew didn't play for a couple of years. Now he's playing. But they fired him.
He was just mouthing the harmonica. Didn't play.
They've always had a guy to do just that, to go on and hold a harmonica.
Make up quantity.
So many bads. But what I can't understand is why they don't have the guy who's just standing there do the bits with Johnny. But instead they take JoJo, who could play a part, and he does the bits with Johnny, and now that's 2 people aren't playing. See, and then they got one guy in the front in the band, he ain't playing, and so 2 guys play. And there are 5 people standing there, and that doesn't make sense to me.
But in recent years I've heard more people say that, you know, it's a shame they don't play music because they would like to hear some music. They've seen the falls and everything over the last umpteen years.
Well, incidentally, if you are interested, I got tapes of quite a few of the movie soundtracks. A very good quality tape from the 1 in a Million. Very good quality on Rascals. I got that short that I'm in.
Well, you know,
And I got a bunch of old Minevitch records that I had never heard. Boots and Saddles, and Music Goes Round and Round. A Hawaiian medley and stuff. You know, those I had never heard of before.
well, there's something.
So I have 98% of what the Minevitch Act cut in its heyday.
That's good music.
Well, they've got usually about 8 guys playing. And it's full, and boy, Leo Diamond rehearsed their butts off to get them to play that way, because it was really quite good.
Speaking of Paul Barron, now, about 3 or 4 years ago, when they were up in Pontiac, they had Charlie Newman with them, and a few other people, and they sounded fairly good then.
Newman's. They said they fired Newman because he was a little too weird for them.
Okay.
You know Charlie?
Yeah, just reading that one time, that's all.
Charlie used to live about 3 blocks from me in San Francisco, and I got to know him really well. And he was kind of pathetic, because in his day he was an innovator, you know, like Stevie Wonder is an innovator, Toots is an innovator, and Newman was one of the first to use the time switches and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And he was really spectacular, but I guess when I met him in San Francisco, he was 47 or 48 years old, and he only worked 2 or 3 jobs a year. And his mother was scrubbing floors on her hands and knees in a bank, marble floors, to support him. His mother was like 70 years old.
Is that right?
And I thought, wow, there's something wrong with this guy to send his mother out to work. And he was always afraid of catching cold, so he'd wear 3 pairs of socks and 2 or 3 pairs of underwear. And he'd come up to the house in the summertime. He'd have his coat and a scarf, and you know, and Lucky's the guy's a real wacko. And he came up and said, oh, he had a lucky accident. You know, he was coming home from a job and the car got hit, and he wound up in the hospital. And they sued the company, the insurance companies, and they got like a $2,000 settlement for him or something. And the guy let him keep $400. The lawyer.
A lucky accident.
A lucky accident.
I thought he was more or less independently wealthy, and he didn't have to work or didn't want to work or something. What have we got? Well, anyway, from what are you doing presently now? When did you start this comic with the comedian bit with the single? After you left, a few years after you left the.
I came back around Detroit again to do just a straight mouth organ act for a while, and I was getting like $115, $120 a week in clubs, and you didn't work every week, so I got kind of skimpy. And I met a fellow here named Wally Dean, who did a comedy act, and he said he was going to write me a whole thing. So I did a hokey comedy act with misfit tales and entered on a pogo stick and that kind of
That's
stuff.
when you were working at the Gay Haven.
That's what we need.
Yeah, at the Gay Haven I did that
Right.
act.
Over here on
Warren
Warren Avenue. Oh, is that right?
Right.
Yeah.
That comes
real
back
popular.
now with the pogo stick thing. The pogo stick.
And did that for a while, and I kept getting hurt because I'd fall off the pogo stick or go through floors with it and stuff. So then about 57, the act got to the point it is now, where I did basically talk and a little harmonica with it. Went into a club called the Purple Onion in San Francisco, and I stayed there for I guess it was 6, 7 months, and then went across the street to the Hungry Eye, and it was like the substitute act. Whenever an act wasn't there, or they had a musician's contract for 5 nights a week, why I worked the other 2 for them.
Yeah.
What about that?
Keep talking.
Okay. So that's when I started to evolve this act, and then I've been doing a single ever since, except working with Murad, and back with Paleo.
That was up in Montreal, wasn't it?
Well, first of all, I played bass with him when Don had his heart attack. And I did a talk shot in the middle of the act. And so when Don got well enough to work again, and they had some cocktail lounge work coming up, when they figured it might work out to take 4. So they did, and then it worked pretty well. We got a quick repeat for another month, and we did someplace in Indiana, Marion, Indiana, Sut Miller's, a few other things with the 4, and it worked out good. Then decided to do that, and back to the single again. So.
Murad came into Detroit to play the auto show. And as usual, the trip back out to the airport on closing night.
He had some close friend run him out.
Yes. Twin reverb.
Don't you feel like a patsy?
Twin reverb amps and wardrobe and 5 bodies in the car. And that car was bottoming all the way out to the airport.
5 bods.
Well, the 3 of them and see, I had my sister-in-law along and myself. Well then, all the way out.
Is this with Don or Dick Gardner?
Don. All the way out, I heard about the fantastic sounds of the Harmonica of Stagg McMann. And we worked up in Montreal and this and that, and we're going to become a foursome.
Yeah, well, they hired me full time.
etc. And boy, things are going to be fantastic. This was just after the saddle show. So, boy, this is going to be real nice.
Well,
It's going to work 45 and 45, something like that. The comedy and the...
Well, I thought it was working out very well, and then Jerry said as of October such and such a date, you'll be with us full time. So I have a manager, Marcus Glazer, the guy I'm still with. I told him don't book anything after October so and so, and the time kept getting closer and closer, and they don't say anything about it anymore. And they went to the coast to do the Joey Bishop show. And I tune in, Jerry wants me to tape it for him, you know, so I tape the show, and I see they've got new wardrobe. So when I came back from that, I says, what's with the new wardrobe? See, they had just gotten me to buy a tux like theirs and a sport jacket and gray pants, blazer and stuff. And so finally Jerry says, well, the wives decided we should keep it a trio because there's not enough money now. You know, and if another cut came out, another split, why, we couldn't afford it. And that's how I found out. So by then it was too late to book anything in October, so I just figured, oh, I got the shaft again. You know?
Right. I remember. Hey, little woman's got some dinner prepared, and I'm full of cake myself. I mean, you guys are too, but why don't we go upstairs and see if we can fake it at the dinner table a little bit, and then we'll come back down. And she's got to leave to go to church. She wants to hurry up and get the stuff cleared away, so why don't you come up now by the... And that may tide you over.
You wouldn't say that before I chomped into a couple hunks of the cake.
Eat your dessert first, that's what I always do.
There you go, you had your dessert already.
Right, so you don't get any after.
That's cool.
I'm still full from last night. So
Yeah, I know. Yeah, Gordon and I went over to St. Clair Shores and recorded the orchestra, and
Now you can see how the little Rice Krispies are made, huh?
Is this the same fellow that built the,
Oh, that's neat.
you built this?
I'm doing it.
There's a fellow that built one, the chord for LPR.
Oh, this is a double rig, though.
Yeah, well, he gave me the rig that he cuts the plastic in, Larry Janeski. He does a much better job than I do.
Oh, come on. Oh, I want to bring, I don't know if you guys want coffee.
Do you get the cellophane sound out of this?
I've been using one for 5 years, same harmonica on stage, you know, and it's never given me any trouble, so I'm totally happy.
It's funny, Larry they call. He wasn't home when they called. Gene got me. He makes
Slide doesn't work.
a little later on, but...
I might use coffee environment.
Yeah, me
Yeah,
too.
okay, napkins we'll bring up.
Oh, yeah, right. I forgot
There's some silly
about that.